What's up, MetaNerds? In this video we're going to be taking an in-depth look at one of the most convenient ways to conquer a planet, the C-9979 landing craft. We'll go over its original use by the Trade Federation, work our way through its time as the backbone of the CIS invasion fleet, and of course do a complete breakdown, seeing exactly what made it such a reliable piece in the Separatist movement. Let's take a look back before the Clone Wars to get a better idea of the C-9979 and its role in galactic history. Right before the infamous invasion of Naboo that would kickstart the Sith's grand plan, Howard Charles Engineering, a subsidiary of the Techno Union, was contacted by the Nymordians of the Trade Federation to produce a series of vehicles for their schemes. This would be one of those vehicles, and in a short time, the Zychar would see their creations spread like a virus throughout the galaxy in total war. The first time we see these craft in action was the aforementioned blockade, and later invasion of Naboo led by Newt Gunray and his Trade Federation. Painted in the unassuming dull brown of the company, his massive landing vehicles would descend on the landing zone, deploy their droid forces, unloading an army large enough to scare Queen Amidala and her people into signing the treaty. It is during this invasion that we get an interesting look at a tactic used by the Trade Federation, and which would be picked up by the CIS, using a triangular formation of 3 ships during an attack. These craft would land strategically between major cities and deploy their vast array of droids, allowing a swift cutoff of supplies and reinforcements for the defenders. The TF applied this strategy to the whole world, isolating the city of Oxen and securing it before launching a full-fledged assault on the capital of Theed. Each of these would pour out MTTs, AATs, droids, and STAPs, hoping to overwhelm in sheer numbers. At least that was the plan. As we know, through the courage of Padme, the skills of the Jedi, secret amphibious Sith, and with a little luck from Anakin, the invasion of Naboo would be a total disaster for Gunray and his associates. Following this failure to truly conquer Naboo, many of these landing craft would be captured by the Royal Naboo Security Volunteers, as well as the Gungans, and were either scrapped, turned over to the Republic, or taken as a prize, being used as civilian cargo transports. We don't see much from this craft over the next 10 years, as tensions were rising and the Trade Federation would become one of the major members of the CIS, and the only other time we see it before the outbreak of the Clone Wars was during the Battle of Nod Kartha. Legends say it was a skirmish between the Jedi who backed the local resistance against the Trade Federation. The forces of good would come out victorious in that conflict, right before the galaxy was thrown into chaos. Seceding from the Galactic Republic under the leadership of Count Dooku, the newly formed Separatist Alliance would once more call upon the C-9979 to serve as the primary transport for its armor and troops. Painted in the colors of the CIS, blue and gray, and anointed with the symbol of their cause, this vehicle would see use on countless worlds, and even the capital planet of Coruscant would see these monsters landing on its city streets, unloading hundreds of thousands of droids into combat for the capture of Chancellor Sidious. Darth Palpatine. The Senate. A very noteworthy use of this landing craft was actually not the battle between clone and droid, but a scornful encounter between the CIS and the Night Sisters of Dathomir. Here we see these landing craft deliver the Bane of Talzin, as her clan's doom is delivered via the 9979. We see its wreckage across many worlds as well. When the Clone Wars came to a sudden end following the execution of the Separatist Council, the use of the C-9979 appears to have come to an end. The Empire certainly had no use for them, and being as big and laborious as they weren't a good fit for the growing alliance. And so it fell into scrap piles and into galactic history. Let me pause to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into their network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists that can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences when it comes to therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's through chat, text, or a video or phone call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule therapy sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch therapists for no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you'd expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who's custom-picked for you, there's more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/MetaNerdz. That's betterhelp.com/MetaNerdz. I've also linked them down in the description. With the history of this beast in the books, let's take a closer look at the specifications that made this vehicle so useful. As we've previously mentioned, this landing craft was one of the many vehicles produced by the soon-to-be Confederacy by Howard Charles Engineering Corporation. The Zychar that made up this company are a fanatical insectoid-like species whose religion centers around the construction of high-precision machinery. To get a brand new landing craft, you'd have to shell out 12 million credits. That's enough coin to buy you 100 MTTs or 300 Vulture droids. But what did all those credits get you? Well, it's quite a lot in fact. Measuring at a length of 210 meters or 688 feet, it would stretch over 2 football fields or over 4 A6 juggernauts placed end to end. With a towering height of 24.6 meters or 80 feet, this thing would be over 2 MTTs tall, about the height of 2 Brachiosaurus or 98 buzz droids in their ball form. Powered by ion engines, this ship would reach a max speed of 587 km per hour or 364 miles per hour, and while certainly not slow, landing craft isn't going to win many races, and it would get lapped by other transport ships out there. The Imperial Sentinel shuttle clocks in with a top speed of 1,000 km per hour, and even the Alliance GR-75 gets up to 650. But of course, the C-9979 is the largest. It does come equipped with a Class 2 hyperdrive, the same ones found in the imposing Lucrehulk. And remember, these transports are rarely out on their own, just in case they happen to be separated from the main fleet, and even if it took damage, it did have a backup Class 15 hyperdrive. Incredibly slow, but enough so you could disappear through the blue void. Coming stocked with impressive long-range sensors and shielding, it didn't have to pray to the mechanized bug gods to survive battle, as it even had 4 dorsal-mounted twin laser cannons and 2 wing-mounted twin heavy laser cannons, in case it ever needed to dish out some damage to incoming corvettes or fighters. This armament with the sensors and shielding allowing it to hold its own until reinforcements could back it up. To crew this behemoth, it would take 231 crew, with 88 of those being automated battle droids, while the other 143 being enlisted organic officers and crew. Which is really rare for the CIS, and why so many actual life forms were needed is a mystery that only the Neimoidians or Zychar could answer. But since this is a transport first and foremost, how much cargo could it actually hold? And how many battle droids? Well, it could move 5,500 tons of cargo, depending on the configuration deployed, which is 11 million pounds, the same weight of 846 African elephants, great for toppling the Cosmic Rome, or 3,142 Rancors. It carries a massive 2,500 battle droids and droidicas. When it comes to vehicles, buckle up because it can carry 114 AATs, 1 mobile command center, 11 MTTs, 22 platoon attack craft, and an unspecified amount of NR and N99 Persuader class droid enforcers, 8 Hydroid Medusas, and 144 Vulture droid starfighters, depending on how you wanted to configure it. So as you can see, this transport certainly packs a punch, and if you have 10 or 20 of these things deployed from the control ships blockading your world, the sheer amount of arms and armor would seem uncontestable. So once this thing landed, how exactly was this army deployed? Let's break down this process from takeoff to touchdown. Usually deployed from the hangars of Lucrehulks, it would clear the atmosphere before beginning its landing cycle in the designated landing zone. In the final moments before landing on the planet's surface, massive repulsor lifts would activate to keep the ship steady, making use of super magnum anti-gravity coils, making sure the ship would stay true to course and stable when its landing gear deployed and hit the ground. All of these precautions when landing this massive craft may seem like overkill, but when this many assets are at stake, one can never be too cautious. Imagine the financial loss this would be for the Neimoidians. And it shows that the technology in the Star Wars galaxy, while certainly fantastical, is not magic and does in fact attempt to make some sense. With all these overlapping systems, it makes me wonder if repulsor lifts are subject to a real-world phenomenon called the vortex ring state, an aerodynamic condition in which a vortex ring forms around the rotor, causing a severe and often irreversible loss in lift capability. Maybe the Howard encountered similar issues in previous designs and implemented more measures to ensure a steady and safe landing. But following that landing, perimeter field sensors would scan the surrounding area for landmines or other hazards that could cause issues in the deployment process. And once in the clear, the gargantuan doors would swing open and the drop ramp would be let down. Out first would be the pre-staged combat-ready units. This would consist of either MTTs, like we see on Naboo, or AATs, as we often see during the Clone Wars. Repulsor tracks that lined the staging area, as they were too big and unwieldy to navigate inside of these wings without assistance. These tracks would lead the armor from the inner wings, where they were stored for transport, to the staging area above the main gate. The transport clamps would assist the vehicles in being lowered to the ramp for deployment onto the battlefront. This process was not quick, and depending on how many vehicles needed to be deployed, the entire process could take upwards of 45 minutes. The ship also serves as a sort of command center for the Federation or Separatist forces. When an AAT used all of its ammunition, it wasn't reloaded by B-1s like their artillery is on Ryloth, but instead these tanks would return to the C-9979 and have their entire lower frame removed within the safety of the landing craft, having this bottom shovel foot part replaced with one full of more ordnance, before being sent back off into combat. While interesting, with the speed of the AAT, I'm not sure this is the most practical tactic. But this ability is extremely useful when paired with the deployment of a mobile command center, like the one we see on Felucia during Ahsoka's kidnapping. An MCC would be set up with a landing craft at its center. Tall walls, droid sentries, and a large gate made this a quick and protected way to install a base of operations for Separatist forces. Although not seen on Felucia, if you paired this center with AAT and MTT reinforcements, it would truly be a deadly way to not only launch an invasion, but keep your landing zone safe. One issue of this mobile command center, an issue fully taken advantage of by the clones on Felucia, was the lack of shielding around that base, making it extremely vulnerable to not only bombing runs and airstrikes, but from artillery as seen with the mass driver of the ATT. Having a mobile shield generator would make it almost impenetrable, but that shield would have to be deactivated to allow the landing craft to pass, as well as any repulsor tanks used by the SEPs, while Republic walkers would just be able to storm right in. When not in use, the C-9979 would be broken down, with its massive wings stored separately from the body to prevent unnecessary strain to the vehicle. When in operation, the wings were attached to this main body via specialized tensor fields to prevent them from sagging under their own weight, or even breaking off mid-flight. And this ship does have one known variant, the nicely named C-9979 landing craft, which was mentioned in the new Essential Guide to Vehicles and Vessels. It's essentially the same ship, but is said to be slightly larger, just allowing for even more armored vehicles to be carried into battle. So that's it for the breakdown, but check out these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. First entered the galaxy via the Phantom Menace novelization, and of course was soon seen in the film. Being the main mode of transport for the CIS, it's made its way into comics, games, books, and TV shows. Both Clone Wars and The Clone Wars feature this ship, with the version in the latter being surprisingly undersized. It's caused some confusion in legend and canon sourcebooks. Encyclopedia of Star Wars and Other Vehicles has different size measurements from the official databank. The same encyclopedia gives differing figures on the droid capacity of the ship, which conflicts with the more recent Rise of the Separatist book. And so even with the new canon trying to clear up some of the confusion and conflicting information covering all this stuff for decades, even newer canon material has different figures. Though the only variation is that one mentioned, which is just larger than what we see in Phantom Menace, not the smaller one we see in the Clone Wars show. The final design of this craft was drawn up by the famed Star Wars concept artist Doug Chiang, who based its look on a dragonfly, and what Lucas liked about it is that he said it reminded him of an old biplane. But that's it for the C-9979. If you made it this far, please hit that like button, subscribe to see more, and check out these other videos, I'm sure you'll like them. But most important of all, remember, next time you're invading a peaceful planet, please allow for 45 minutes to deplane, and the Force will be with you, always.